Hello, everyone, and thanks for listening to the Quality Hub, Chatting with ISO Experts. I'm your host, Xavier Francis, and today I'm here with Scott Dawson, President here at Core Business Solutions, Jutta Bangs, Counselor with the Tennessee APEX Accelerators, and Kevin Cooper, Strategic Advisor with Tennessee MEP. Glad you all could join us.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Thank you, X.
Thank you for having us.
My pleasure. Now, today's podcast is part of our Survive and Thrive series, the podcast dedicated to delivering practical strategies for small businesses. Our mission is to help you navigate these unprecedented times of change and uncertainty. Our episodes are packed with real-world advice from trusted industry experts like who we have here today, and they're tailored specifically for small business leaders like you. Thanks for joining us as we explore insights that can empower you and your business to not only survive, but truly thrive. Now, today's topic is shoring up your supply chain, building resilience before the next disruption. But before we get on our topic, let's learn a bit about our guest and their journey. Can we start with you, Jutta?
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for having me. I'm a counselor for the East Tennessee region with the APEX Accelerator. We are funded in parts for a cooperative agreement with the Department of Defense. And in Tennessee, we are hosted by the University of Tennessee. And we provide no-cost assistance to businesses wanting to do government contracting at the state, local, or federal level. Thanks again for having me.
Absolutely. And how about you, Kevin? Can you give us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, most of my career had been in supply chain and automotive and pharmaceutical. And toward the end of the career, I started working with the University of Tennessee and Institute of Public Service. So I was working with manufacturers and helping them with problems that I had been working with throughout my career. But most of the core experience has been around supply chain management, some product management, and ERP implementations. Tennessee MEP Center can deliver training programs to help your team grow their skills in areas like safety, leadership, process improvement, and more. We also work with you to solve problems through streamlining your manufacturing operations.
Fabulous. Well, certainly do appreciate you both being here. And how about you, Scott? We've been working with this series for a little bit, but you want to give a little bit about yourself to any possible new listeners?
Yeah, glad to, X. Great to be here. I had the pleasure of meeting Jutta and Kevin through our working with MEPs and APEX Accelerators across the country. Tennessee is really a hub of expertise, and I'm here talking to two of the experts in the state of Tennessee, and I think through the nation about how to really help small businesses be successful. Core Business Solutions is a consulting firm helping small businesses with compliance, so it's kind of natural that Tennessee and Lewisburg, Pennsylvania would connect. It was in the stars, X. It was in the stars.
I believe it was. Well, I'm going to hand it over to Scott to ask some of these questions. I will chime in with some as well. But let's get started. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, glad to, X. And Kevin, thanks again for being here. Appreciate it. And I know when we were getting acquainted and getting ready for this episode, we were talking about disruptions and how often small businesses, any business, faces various types of disruptions. It might take different forms. It's a normal thing to face disruption. Can you explain what you meant by that?
Well, yeah, I've been in supply chain for about 100 years, and throughout this whole time, it's never been easy because of the supply and demand variations and the disruptions that we see. I do not recall it ever being easy. So when we hear about a disruption coming up, like right now it's the tariffs, it really doesn't get me very excited. And let me put that into perspective. If you go back 25 or 30 years, and depending on how you define a major disruption, there have been about 25 or 30 significant supply chain disruptions. And those are the things that are on the news and that everybody talks about. But during that same time frame, there have been hundreds of regional disruptions. They've been commodity shortages, floods, brutal weathers, hurricanes, labor strikes, and things like that. And that list just goes on. So while a global disruption will make the news and it will affect a lot of people, The minor disruptions or the more regional disruptions, they don't get a lot of media attention, but they have a massive effect on fewer manufacturers. So as we're looking at the supply chains, we have to address both, and we have to be prepared for both. The thing that really gets me on this is that when the next new disruption does come up, businesses they'll act surprised and they'll be excited about it. Well, we know that something's going to happen. We just don't know what it is or when it's going to occur.
Yeah, I think that's right. And if we treat disruptions as a normal part of business and plan for it, I think that's kind of the mindset that you're suggesting here. How would a change in mindset like that help business leaders be more effective in planning for things that come up?
I think it goes back to the supply chain design. And, we hear that term. What does it really mean? But for me, a supply chain needs to be efficient and effective, but it also needs to be adaptive. And the adaptive component of that treats this variation and the disruptions that we see. Now, they're trade-offs because it's going to cost more money to be more adaptive or to be more efficient. And there are conflicts. You can do one, but not necessarily the other. So there has to be a strategic approach about where you want to align your supply chain based on the environment that you expect to see. The one thing that you need to really focus on as you're doing that is an awareness. Keep your eyes open. What are the threats that supply chain is likely to encounter? And having a visibility to those threats and an understanding, and at least have an awareness about what you would do once that threat manifests itself. We're never going to guess it perfectly, but if we start thinking within that mindset, we start to expose the vulnerabilities of that supply chain. The thinking can either be process focused or product focused. It doesn't matter, but it needs to be real. Now, we're talking about small to mid-sized manufacturers here. So I don't want to send out a complex risk mitigation session. I just want to get the interested parties in a room and talk about it and get it down on the table. What are the expected risks that we're about to have? And by doing it like that, they're going to understand what those risks are, and they'll have belief in your mitigation strategy.
Well, and I presume that means that you have a regular part of your business process where you're constantly asking those questions. It seems to me that's just the foundation of this.
Absolutely. Now, it can be in a strategic production meeting. The way that I was accustomed to do it was in a product review meeting, and we would have those quarterly. Now, for the more strategic products, we may do that more frequently and talk about it. Some of them we would only talk about once a year, if it didn't have a major revenue impact. So make it as important as it needs to be. But yes, you're absolutely right, because if it's not incorporated into a regular process, it's not going to get done.
Yeah, for sure. Everybody's too busy. Well, Jutta, let me pivot just a bit on this topic and ask you to join in on this conversation. I'm specifically thinking about various tools or methods that you could use to evaluate your supply base. How can a small business get a more clear picture of the risk in their supply chain?
Thanks for asking that, Scott. That's a really important question. So we find that most companies really only know their direct suppliers. Those are the ones they work with on a day-to-day basis. But here's the thing. Often the businesses have no clue what's happening beyond that first layer, if you will. Mm-hmm. And that's where a lot of the hidden problems are lurking. When you can see your entire value stream, then you can start seeing inefficiencies and bottlenecks you didn't even know existed. You can think of a supply chain map as creating like a roadmap of your entire network. And let me expand on that. You're not just talking about physical products moving around the plant or between partners. You're also mapping out your information flows, the relationships, all the activities that make everything work together across every level and tier of suppliers. Now, a value stream analysis, that's another buzzword. That takes this a step further. It is actually a lean tool, so manufacturers will be familiar with the term lean manufacturing.
Right.
And it looks at both how the materials and the information move through the system. So you might wonder, what's the real payoff here to do this? Well, you can actually pinpoint exactly where your time gets wasted and where activities aren't adding real value to your operations. So basically, it helps you spot waste wherever it's hiding in your process. So how this relates to the APEX, related to supply chain mapping, it is about identifying manufacturers in the state of Tennessee, and we're creating a map of companies that have the capabilities to become part of the defense industrial base. We're with the government, there needs to be an acronym. That acronym is DIB. And APEX Accelerators provide no cost technical assistance, in this case to manufacturers that want to learn how to do business with the government. And all these supply chain issues are part of that bigger picture. In our case, this map can be used to help companies optimize their own supply chains, and we can help them connect with suppliers they can use across the various tier levels. And listeners that are outside of Tennessee, go find your local APEX Accelerator and reach out to them for help.
Yeah, I would double that comment because there are resources throughout the nation, APEX and MEPs, that are just tremendous resources for manufacturers wherever you're located, certainly. And so, Jutta, as you were talking about the supply chain maps and other tools, I'm picturing this large butcher paper up on the conference room wall with push pins and sticky notes and magic markers and laying it all out. Sometimes somebody who's not in the project walks in and says, what is all this stuff? But what are some simple ways that busy small businesses can get started? Do you go get the butcher paper first and go from there?
That's a great question. So the real secret sauce here is that you have a facilitator who can walk you through this. So you're not by yourself looking at that blank sheet of paper. Someone who really knows the ropes and who's done that before. So you also don't need to start from scratch. Start with what's right in front of you. Like, take stock of your current suppliers, make a list that covers the basics. What does everybody provide? Where are they located? How long are their lead times? And do you have any backup options if things go sideways? Now then comes the detective work. You start asking your vendors about their own suppliers. So it's like a waterfall and it trickles down.
Yeah.
And you want to get to that second tier visibility. Who are they counting on? What would happen if one of their key suppliers hit a snag? It's really critical to understand these paths, and it gives you a much clearer picture of where your own vulnerabilities are hiding.
So then let me just kind of go to kind of a wrap-up question here, which ties together the points you both have made about risks and threats to your business through supply chain gaps and things like that. What are some of the common weaknesses that you guys see that small businesses could address before the next big disruption?
So a manufacturer doesn't wait until a machine breaks down mid-run to do a tune-up.
Yeah.
You take advantage of the scheduled downtime to clean and calibrate. That's exactly how a business should treat stable periods. Inspect the line, retool the process, fix the weak links before the next spike in demand or disruption hits. And I think that analogy really sums it up pretty well. Just do the things that are the right things to do your maintenance, and don't wait until something happens. And you can apply that thinking to just about any other process in your company.
Kevin, what do you have to add?
Well, first of all, there are some fantastic tools out there for you to help you determine what those weaknesses are. And there are just supply chain risk mitigation models, and they help you identify where your weaknesses are. And the classical answer to that question would probably be something along the line of, I have too long a supply chain, or I have a single or sole source supplier. And that's very true. I'm not going to bore you with that, but that's very true. But when I look at supply chains and I try to identify the vulnerability that I most often see, the one thing that really pops up for me is no process for supplier relationship management and customer relationship management. And that's a mirror of what Jutta was saying earlier. Talk to your suppliers, have a genuine understanding, and understand their supply chain. And by going it with that approach, not only are you understanding your supply chain, but you're coaching them into a risk mitigation strategy, and you're helping them to think about it. And keep in mind who we're talking about. We're not talking about massive organizations that has a department doing this. We're talking to small to mid-sized manufacturers, and they need all the help that they can get to help strengthen their supply chain. So this, and again, this supports my mantra of I want bad news early. If you have that relationship, and if you're having that conversation, then they are going to give you a call and let you know that trouble's headed your way versus you waiting for a delivery to be late or for you to run out of parts.
If you, with that in mind, and either one of you can take this, if you had one thing that you would wish every small business would do this quarter, what would that be?
The one thing I would recommend is take time to strategically work on your business instead of in your business. To really take a step back and take a bigger look and really mindfully take that time to do these things that Kevin and I talked about today. Because it's easy, you're in your rut, you're running your production line, you're helping fix issues.
Yep.
But I think you really need to take yourself out, and even a team, to take that time to do some strategic planning.
Yeah. And, it's very easy, like Kevin said, we're talking about small and medium-sized enterprises here, businesses. This could be the same guy that he gets there an hour early and he's helping with the line, and he's staying past an hour past to do work on the business versus in it.
Yes.
And that can be very, very key.
Yeah, so let's wrap with just a short statement from each of you about how APEX Accelerators and MEPs can really help companies who feel like they're behind in the midst of the current chaos of the economy. So Jutta, would you like to go first?
So I'm a big believer in meeting people where they are so they don't feel overwhelmed. Everybody will enter our services at a different point. And we help demystify the process of government contracting, help you assess how procurement ready you are, and help you build a good foundation. If you see the analogy of a mountain, we're helping you build a really stable base camp. And then we provide customized and ongoing coaching. And just to mention again, APEX Accelerator services are provided to you at no cost, no matter where you are.
And they're nationwide as well, correct?
That is correct.
Great. Kevin, tell us a little bit about the resource of MEPs.
Okay, I'm going to address it, but I also want to talk about how it's used. You gave us the example of getting that brown paper exercise where you have the value stream up on a wall, and then where you have a cross-functional group looking at that value stream and mapping it out and learning about your process from that. Well, the rest of the story here is that at the end of that, you've got an action item list. You've identified some weaknesses, and you've got some areas where you found that you need to work on. Well, what next? What do you do? Who does that? Again, we're talking small to mid-sized organization. You don't call the QMS department or the efficiency department or anything like that. You're going to have to address some things that you found out, and you're not going to have the resources to do that. And that's where the Tennessee MEP comes in, because if you're needing assistance in implementing an ISO or QS or QMS system, lean, OSHA, regulatory, anything like that, we have the resources that can help you address the vulnerability that you found. And if we don't have the resources in-house, we have a guy. And that was my standing joke when I was in there. Said, okay, I can't do it, but I have a guy. So we have relationships and we have resources available to us to where we can solve the problem. And that's a fantastic option. And it sure beats Googling to try to find out, a lean expert or anything like that. So we will bring that to the table. We'll bring the expertise that you need to find or to solve the problems that you found.
Yeah, and regardless of where you're located, seek out those resources that are in your state or your commonwealth, because they are invaluable, funded by the federal government. They're usually no cost or low cost to you. So please take advantage of that, or get in contact with our guests here today, and they'll point you in the right direction if you don't know quite where to start. So appreciate that, Kevin. Thank you, Jutta.
So what I'm hearing today is, to recap, disruption's constant, whether it's global, whether it's state-based, whether it's local. You have to plan accordingly. Make sure you're taking the steps ahead of time, because it's going to be a constant thing, no matter where it's coming from. 2, use some supply chain mapping. It's powerful. A lot of people don't know about it. It's underused. Reach out to an MEP or APEX Accelerator to help you with that if you're not familiar. And again, don't wait. You want to strengthen your foundation now. You want to get some of these processes in place. And like Jutta said, if you had one thing to do, work on your business, not in it.
Very good.
Spot on, X.
Well, thank you all for being here. This has been great. I really do appreciate your time and attention, putting some stuff into this. I hope, listeners, again, if you're looking for Kevin or Jutta specifically, their contact information will be in the podcast description.
Thank you much.
Yeah, this went great.
And that wraps up this episode of the Survive and Thrive series on the Quality Hub podcast, where we unpack real-world insights and share practical strategies to help small businesses like yours. If you found these conversations helpful, share them with your colleagues, your network, or anyone who could use a boost of practical guidance. You can access all past episodes on our website at thecoresolution.com, and be sure to check out the podcast description for contact information on Core Business Solutions and our podcast guests. And remember, thriving in a changing world starts with knowledge and the courage to act on it. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep leading with clarity, resilience, and purpose. Have a great day.